Thank you for this very special reception. Who never takes a risk will never have a chance. You may think you know who I am, what I stand for, what I'm like. You may think you know what FIFA is, what it does, what it aspires to be, a faceless machine printing money at the expense of the beautiful game, with me pulling the strings and laughing all the way to the bank. It's not exactly that.
Hello, my dear friends. Hello. This is the FIFA president speaking, your friend Sepp Blatter.
It is a unique position.
I am the FIFA president.
He's the most powerful man in sports.
I am doing my job as FIFA president.
Sepp Blatter is a very nice person. I like him. My wife likes him. And I'm sure that if he's in this room, in 10 minutes, you like him too.
I was making some dancing. Dancing. I have only asked for respect.
He lives in his own little world of denial.
Quite clearly, Sepp Blatter has presided over an increasingly endemic culture of corruption within FIFA.
FIFA is not corrupt.
Nothing happens in the organization without his authority. It's not a democracy.
Qatar.
Never has been.
These difficulties will be solved inside our family.
That's no way to run a global sporting organisation like it's some sort of mafia family. But that, I'm afraid, is what it has become under his leadership.
Nobody should underestimate Sepp Blatter.
Crisis? What is a crisis?
He moves with the charm of the B-list socialite, but the ruthlessness of a snake.
Here in Zurich, Switzerland, on May 29th, more than 200 sports executives from across the planet will gather for an election. They're coming here to decide who will hold the most powerful position in the world of sports, the presidency of FIFA, the global governing body of soccer. They're widely expected to re-elect Sepp Blatter, a 79-year-old from Switzerland who has led FIFA since 1998. Over the course of the next hour, we'll chronicle Blatter's rise to power and his tenure as president. We'll also attempt to show how, despite innumerable controversies, despite constant scandal, he has managed for so long to maintain his grip on power. All of FIFA's power and prestige derives from one simple fact. It owns and operates the FIFA World Cup, the most lucrative, most popular event of any kind on planet Earth.
Thank you.
If there is a single defining moment of Sepp Blatter's presidency, it is this.
The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
Even now, the decision still mystifies.
Qatar? There's between 1 and 50 reasons why that is an awful idea. There are now allegations that some FIFA executives took bribes to put the World Cup in Qatar, and I hope that's true, because otherwise it makes literally no sense.
Jutting into the Persian Gulf, Qatar is a tiny but extremely wealthy nation. Roughly the size of Connecticut, with fewer than 300,000 citizens, and no soccer tradition to speak of. Summer temperatures there routinely exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. More important, human rights experts say Qatar 2022 is a catastrophe in the making.
Conservatively, from the figures of just two countries, India and Nepal, more than 4,000 workers will die before a ball is kicked off in 2022.
There is not one single doubt that the World Cup 2022 will be organized in Qatar decision taken by the Executive Committee on the 2nd of December 2010 and not reversible.
I think a lot of fingers are being pointed to Qatar. You're the bad guys, you're the bad guys. But the bad guys is FIFA. They're the ones who set up the rules.
Phaedra Al-Majid is an Arab-American media consultant. 6 years ago, she was working for Qatar's World Cup bid committee.
I don't think anyone took us seriously. We weren't anyone to reckon with. I don't think anyone really cared.
It's January 2010. Al-Majid and the rest of the Qatari bid team are in Luanda, the capital of Angola. A conference of African soccer officials is taking place at this hotel. In attendance were members of FIFA's Executive Committee, or EXCO. Each had one of the 24 votes that would decide where the 2022 World Cup would be held.
What did you see in Angola?
I witnessed the Qatari team offering to different EXCO members money in exchange for their vote.
You were there.
I was there in the room, yes.
How much money?
1.5 million.
Per
vote.
To three different
members.
Three different members. What did they say?
The members? Well, they agreed. I mean, it didn't take much convincing, let's put it that way. It was quite a simple transaction.
The winning bid would require just 12 of the 24 EXCO members to vote for it, making each vote enormously valuable.
Where was the offer made?
It was made in a private suite within the hotel we were staying at.
Was it all three at the same time or
No.
separately?
It was separate.
What were you thinking yourself after those meetings?
I knew Qatar would win. I knew it. It was obvious that we would win.
Shortly after the conference in Angola, Al-Majid was fired from her job as a media consultant. She says because she was blamed that other bid committees were receiving more favorable media coverage.
And what did you do then?
I was given 3 days to leave the country.
When did you first share your story with anyone?
Well, I had talked to some journalists. I mean, I kept on saying Qatar is going to win, and they kept on saying, well, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy.
Is Qatar.
And it happened. After that, journalists just kept on contacting me.
In May 2011, Al-Majid's allegations were presented at a public hearing in the British Parliament. Her identity wasn't revealed.
How did FIFA respond when your allegations became public?
They invited me to go to Zurich, and I was promised I would remain anonymous. And then Blatter said to the media, yes, the Qatar whistleblower will be here on a Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and basically told everyone where I was going to be.
We have asked for evidence, and this famous whistleblower will be in FIFA on Wednesday and will tell us if there is something or not.
And I refused at that time, of course, to go and testify.
Al-Majid was worried that because of Blatter's statement, she would be identified in Zurich. The meeting never took place. Just a few months later, Al-Majid retracted her allegations.
Why did you retract what you had said?
Everyone who became a member of the bidding team had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, for $1 million, that nothing would be revealed about what happened in the bidding. Obviously, by talking to the media, it was obvious that I've broken that arrangement.
Al-Majid had asked FIFA to protect her legally if she was sued for violating her non-disclosure agreement with the Qataris. FIFA declined.
The Qataris do have a judgment against me in Qatar. I do owe them $1 million for having broken the agreement. And I was told they were going to come after me for the money. And I'm also a single mother. I have 2 autistic children, and I don't have $1 million. And so their lawyers drew up an affidavit, and I was made to sign it. In exchange, I was promised I would get a letter stating that they would not sue me.
And did you get that letter?
No, on the contrary, I got another letter about 6 months later saying that if I ever contacted the Qatari bid again for any reason, I would be sued.
The Qataris denied that Al-Majid was pressured to retract her allegations.
If you had a chance to have that meeting with Sepp Blatter that never took place back in 2011, what would you want to tell him?
I would want to tell him everything I had witnessed. I would have wanted to tell him everything. And had we had that meeting, at that point, the Qataris could have never forced me into an affidavit. I would have already said everything to FIFA.
What does it say about Sepp Blatter that he had an opportunity to speak to someone who had these serious accusations and he chose not to?
It goes back to the fact that he lives in his own little world of denial. Nothing's wrong in FIFA. There is no corruption. It's just this troublemaker who's claiming that there's problems, but there's nothing wrong.
That's why we set out to speak to those who have known Sepp Blatter best, observed him up close, to find out what drives the most powerful man in sports. And in its shadow, we find the beginnings of the legend of Sepp Blatter. When Forbes magazine last fall published its list of the most powerful people on the planet, Barack Obama, Vladimir Putin, Pope Francis, they all made the cut. But there was only one figure on the list from the world of sports. That was Sepp Blatter. Blatter grew up far from the corridors of power here in Visp, a medieval Swiss village, where for hundreds of years, generations of Blatters had lived more or less quietly.
Hier in Visp ist einfach der Sepp. Läuft hier in Visp frei herum, wie jede natürliche Person auch. Ist sehr gesprächig. Quatscht oder redet mit allen Leuten.
For more than 40 years, Blatter has been coming to Joseph Schwartz's bakery. The specialty of the house was created specifically in his honor, FIFA bread.
Und dann haben wir eben obendrauf diese Obladen, dass das aussieht wie ein Ball und in der Mitte drin das FIFA-Zeichen. Ist eigentlich ein einfaches Brot, aber ein sehr gutes.
Life in this 1,000-year-old village is also simple.
It's small, it's tiny. Some people, they like to be king in a village, and some of them, they want to become bigger in a town or in a city or in a nation. And Sepp Blatter is definitely the second case.
Bruno Offentronger is the author of the only full-scale biography of Blatter, Sepp, King of the Football World.
He was born in a family which was, let's say, they were not rich. They had not a lot of money. I wouldn't say they were poor. I think that's a legend. Well, not poor, but not a lot of money.
The oldest of 4 children, Sepp was cared for at home by his mother. His father worked long hours at the local chemical plant. It was during young Sepp's time at this elementary school, which now bears his name, that he discovered his life's passion.
I was football mad as a boy. I still am. I played whenever and wherever I could. Kicking a ball against the wall if there was nobody else to play with. I wasn't so bad either.
He was forward. People told me that he was very quick. He didn't want to pass the ball. He wanted to score by himself.
Et puis on gagnait en général, parce que Sepp marquait énormément de buts. Je me souviens parfaitement d'un match contre les juniors de Massonger où Sepp a marqué 8 buts et nous avons gagné 14-0.
Antoine Schaap was a teammate of Blatter's. He's known him for 70 years.
La toute première qualité qui vous impressionne toujours, c'est le charme. Je n'ai pas connu un être aussi charmant que lui.
As a teenager, Blatter would leave Visp to attend boarding school and later college. But soccer was his dream.
I was offered at that time a professional contract by a club. I needed the signature of my father on the contract. And he refused to sign the contract, can you imagine? He took this contract. My son, he said, you will never earn your living with football.
Instead, Blatter spent time as a bellhop, as an army colonel, as a wedding singer.
Did he have a good voice?
He can sing, yes, he has a good voice.
And even as a sports writer at the biggest local paper, Le Nouvelliste.
Oui, il est évident que le garçon étant sérieux et intelligent, ambitieux notamment.
Jean-Pierre Baller was Blatter's editor.
Oui, il est bien clair que lorsqu'il était correspondant, il n'avait pas l'ambition de devenir journaliste, certainement pas. Lui, il voyait, disons, son avenir différemment.
In 1964, he went to work at the Swiss Hockey Federation. Soon, he was in charge. But his big break came in 1975, when he was hired by the financially strapped organization that governed world soccer, FIFA. Blatter was one of only 12 employees.
That changed his life completely because he has a mission then, the mission to develop football and to raise the money, let's say, to start to sell football as an asset.
And he did. Together with then FIFA president João Havelange, Blatter helped turn FIFA into a cash cow, selling TV and marketing rights for millions of dollars, all amid allegations of corruption.
What did Havelange see in Blatter?
A lieutenant, a good, loyal lieutenant.
By 1998, after 24 years in office, Havelange announced he was stepping down. It was Blatter's chance to go for the top job. His opponent would be Lennart Johansson of Sweden, who promised to make FIFA more transparent.
What was at stake for FIFA in 1998?
The choice was a stark choice there, represented by Blatter as the candidate of continuity against the European president, Lennart Johansson, as the reform candidate. That's what was at stake.
Alan Tomlinson has been researching and writing about FIFA for 30 years. He was in Paris on June 8, 1998, for the election.
There were reports that classic envelopes of cash were going under doors in the hotel in Montparnasse.
Monsieur Joseph Blatter, 111. Monsieur Lennart Johansson, 80.
Merci de m'avoir élu à la présidence de la FIFA.
Merci beaucoup.
I was surprised and disappointed when I had to face facts. I heard rumors of what happened in the corridors before the election. These are rumors. Something happened that was not fair. There are too many people whom I trust who told me what went on. And it hurts.
The age of Sepp Blatter had begun. The financial heart of Switzerland, Zurich is one of the richest cities in the world. It's also the home of FIFA.
There are those who will tell you that FIFA is just a conspiracy, a scam. There are those who will tell you of the supposed sordid secrets that lie deep in our Bund villain headquarters in the hills above Zurich.
Most sports executives don't relish being compared to villains from Bond films. But this is Sepp Blatter.
They would have you believe that I sit in my office with a sinister grin, gently stroking the chin of an expensive white Persian cat. But it is not what we are. That's not FIFA. That's not me.
Monsieur Lennart Johansson.
That perception first came into focus in 1998, when Blatter was elected president amid allegations that his victory had been purchased.
I am not going to give any platform to those that doubt about the results and the correctness of my election in 1998.
If you ask Mr. Blatter, did he buy votes, he would say no. And he has the right to say no, because he never took money in his hand and handed money over to other people. It is not today necessary that you go and buy your votes yourself.
Guido Tagnoni was a FIFA executive for 2 decades. For a time, he was Blatter's closest advisor.
Who was buying votes for him?
I know the actors, I know the people. I do not want to expose them because they're still in the business, and I think it would be wrong 17 years after the event start to put the fingers on certain people.
If the election had been clean, who would have won?
I'm sure that without, let's say, helping hands from outside, it would have been extremely, extremely close. Maybe it would have been different.
Those helping hands are believed to have belonged to Mohammed bin Hammam, a Qatari billionaire, and a FIFA Executive Committee member. He's denied buying any votes, but was undeniably a staunch Blatter supporter.
During the campaign in '98, Blatter was flying around on bin Hammam's private plane?
It was not bin Hammam's private plane.
It was the Emir's?
It was maybe even not the Emir's private plane, but bin Hammam arranged all facilities for Sepp Blatter. I do not know who was the owner, but when Sepp Blatter needed a plane and bin Hammam was around, then he organized the plane.
The plane allowed Blatter to campaign all over, especially in the developing world. Once he became president, Blatter launched the GOAL program, which provides funding for soccer facilities in poorer, smaller member states.
He liked digging over a piece of turf to open a new pitch, being feted wherever he goes. It's a bit like, you know, a rain god arriving or something.
He's campaigning for FIFA and it is campaigning for himself. He always comes with gifts. He comes with the money for the FIFA goal project. He can give nice little jobs in the committees. So the FIFA president is 4 years like Santa Claus.
It's smart politics. Each of these countries has a vote. In fact, all of FIFA's 209 member countries and territories are equal in the presidential election process. And all share equally the profits from the World Cup, regardless of size or soccer prowess.
Liechtenstein gets as much money as Germany. Andorra gets as much money as Spain. San Marino gets as much money as Italy. And Montserrat gets as much money as United States. This is a system of FIFA, and this is one of the keys that the incumbent president stays in power forever if he wants.
At no time was this more evident than in 2002, when Blatter first ran for re-election.
I have put on the table what I call misleading accounting practices.
A week before the vote, FIFA General Secretary Michel Zen-Ruffinen, Blatter's right-hand man, turned on his boss, even as they sat side by side.
I have also indicated some conflicts of interest. There could be corruption within the organization.
In this confidential document, Zen-Ruffinen accused Blatter of running FIFA like a dictatorship.
On essaye par comment dirais-je, une action concertée avec l'aide de certains médias, des tabloïds britanniques, de démolir l'image du président.
At the same time, 11 FIFA Executive Committee members filed a criminal complaint against Blatter, accusing him of corruption.
The candidate elected as FIFA president for the next term of office is Mr. Joseph S. Blatter. Thank you for your attention.
Despite the insurrection, Blatter was re-elected in a landslide.
I register your deep trust in FIFA and in me.
Of course I am disappointed because I thought that the world of football and the associations would understand better the situation. I think they did, but actually they did not want to understand or to really see what happens within the organization because they are happy with what is provided to them.
Concerning the General Secretary, he is in trouble, he said to one of your colleagues. And he is in trouble.
Weeks later, Zen-Ruffinen was ousted. The criminal complaint against Blatter was withdrawn.
How does Blatter continue to survive with all of the controversies?
What happens in FIFA, the corruption, the nepotism, the waste of money and all this, not many countries care about. These little islands which are not bigger than a football field, do you believe that they care what is happening in FIFA, if there is a scandal or not? As long as they get their money, they are happy.
FIFA handed out more than $261 million in World Cup bonuses to its member states after the most recent tournament in Brazil. Not bad for an officially registered non-profit organization.
It is not correct for a billion-dollar company of the entertainment business to have the same status as a yodeling association.
Roland Buchel used to work in marketing at FIFA. Now a member of the Swiss parliament, he's leading the campaign from inside Switzerland to make FIFA more transparent.
FIFA doesn't have to tell anyone how much it pays its executives, correct?
That's correct.
It doesn't have to tell anyone how much it pays any employee.
That's correct.
It doesn't have to reveal the minutes of its meetings.
That's correct.
It doesn't really have to account for itself to any overarching authority.
It's really a problem, but it's a problem of the laws, but it's even a bigger problem of the organization.
In 2010, ISL, a Swiss marketing firm, was found to have paid millions of dollars in bribes to top officials at FIFA.
What did FIFA do when the names of the executives within the organization who had taken these bribes might have been disclosed?
They paid millions and did everything to have to keep these names under the carpet and not to have them revealed.
Is there any reason to believe that Sepp Blatter personally accepted bribes?
I consider Sepp Blatter a very intelligent person, a person who knows what he has to do to remain in power. And I don't think that he's been as stupid as to have taken bribes himself.
In the end, Blatter himself wasn't implicated, but it was determined that he knew that ISL had paid João Havelange $1.6 million.
I see let's say, no clouds in the heaven of FIFA now, tomorrow, or the day after.
Blatter came out and said something, we've been cleared, we're fine, walk away.
Mr. Blatter has one problem. His consultants are not always the most able ones. Blatter seeks loyalty and not quality. And when he says what they suggest to him, so maybe he says stupid things like that.
And we shall wonder if one day our game is played on the other planets. Why not? And then we don't have only a World Cup, we will have interplanetary competitions.
When he's around world leaders, does he consider himself on a par with them, on the same level?
I think yes. I think yes. And you know why? Because they all treat him like this. Maybe when he's out of the room, they laugh about him, but when he's there, they treat him like this.
A few years ago, he wanted to get the Nobel Prize for Peace. And I mean, you won't get the Nobel Prize for Peace with all the allegations of corruption and the real corruption in an association. It was his target.
I mean, it sounds kind of funny, Sepp Blatter and the Nobel Peace Prize.
It doesn't only sound funny, it would be funny, but it was definitely the aim of Mr. Blatter at a certain period of time.
We wanted to ask Blatter about all of these things, but E60's repeated requests for an interview were denied. However, while gathering scenic shots of the Bahnhofstrasse, the most fashionable street in Zurich, a city of some 2 million people, there he was. Filmed in slow motion, this glimpse of Blatter and his girlfriend seems to go on forever. But in reality, it lasted just a few seconds, until a tram crossed between us, and Blatter stepped into a waiting car. And just like that, he was gone. If you're looking for the soul of soccer, you could do worse than an English pub.
It's an incredible privilege to think that this is where football began. This is where football started in the 19th century, and it's one of our best exports to have spread around the world. And I always say to people who don't love football, is there anything in your life that makes you jump up and scream for joy, and then have another 40,000 people doing it there with you? And it's an incredible feeling.
For nearly a century, Wembley in its different incarnations has been the spiritual and literal home of English soccer. This is where, in 1966, England won its only World Cup title. It was in this country in the 19th century that the game of soccer was created. And these days, the most vehement critics of FIFA and its president, Sepp Blatter, are here in England.
The British media and FIFA, I would say now, we may call it, a very interesting relationship.
In 2010, England was one of 4 finalists for the hosting rights to the 2018 World Cup. The day before the winner would be announced, Prime Minister David Cameron led a virtual pep rally in the House of Commons.
We have got the stadia, we've got the facilities, we have the transport networks, we have the enthusiasm in our country for football, and we can put on an absolutely first-class World Cup.
The following day, December 2nd, 2010, the English learned their fate.
2018 FIFA World Cup, ladies and gentlemen, will be organized in Russia.
Despite the entreaties of David Beckham and Prince William, England mustered just 2 votes.
I think they were probably surprised at the scale of the defeat, but not surprised that we lost.
Damian Collins is a member of Parliament.
But what's been more shocking is a rotten culture that pervaded that bidding process, the culture of the Executive Committee and some of the people on it, whereby they expect favours and rewards for their support. And that is the way that they do business.
Some things which were put to me personally, sometimes in the presence of others, which in my view did not represent proper and ethical behaviour.
Lord David Treisman, the chairman of England's bid, testified before a parliamentary committee in May 2011. He said that 4 FIFA Executive Committee members had offered their votes in exchange for cash and favors. One wanted $4 million for an education center.
Then said that the funds could be channeled through him and he would guarantee that they were appropriately spent.
Another EXCO member wanted to be called Sir.
He believed that a knighthood from the United Kingdom would be appropriate. And it was put to me that as a former Foreign Office minister, I must know how these things are organised and could probably achieve it if we had a mind to do so.
What we're talking about is people allegedly soliciting bribes. And that is an offence, and it's an offence around the world. And if you did that in business, then you could expect to be prosecuted for it.
But it wasn't just the 2018 bid that seems to have been corrupted. Just a few minutes after England's loss, there was this announcement.
The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
How did Qatar get the 2022 World Cup?
Money. It bought it. I think that's how they got the World Cup. I mean, there's no other conclusion you could draw.
That was also the conclusion of the British newspaper, the Sunday Times. In 2010, 2 Times reporters went undercover, posing as lobbyists for the U.S. team bidding for the 2022 World Cup.
We went around meeting lots of different FIFA consultants and voters and secretly taped them.
One of the things I want to know from this is, will it help you make your decision in favour of America in some way?
Obviously, it may have an effect. Of course, it may have an effect. It will have an effect.
What were you told about how much it would cost to buy the World Cup?
For an individual voter, we were told anything from about 250,000 to about 1.5 million.
It can be paid in cash, otherwise it can be transferred. Yes. I didn't know whether it would have to go via the Nigerian Football Confederation, or it's better to go to you directly.
Directly.
Heidi Blake and Jonathan Calvert have recently published The Ugly Game, the Qatari plot to buy the World Cup, based on their reporting for The Times. They combed through millions of emails, faxes, and bank transfer slips leaked by a whistleblower from inside FIFA.
What does your evidence show?
Mohammed bin Hammam, who was Qatar's most senior football official at the time, waged a campaign over the 2 years in the lead up to the vote in which he bribed dozens of football officials all around the world in exchange for backing Qatar's World Cup bid.
The Times reporters claimed that bin Hammam spent $5 million buying support for Qatar's bid.
One of the things he was very keen to do was create this big groundswell of support in Africa, and to do that he would bring all the presidents of all the African associations to Doha, where they would be wined and dined, put up in the best hotels, given cash spending money. Afterwards, they would write back to him saying that they'll support his country's bid for the World Cup and then ask him for money.
This is the same Mohammed bin Hammam who'd been accused of buying the votes that made Blatter FIFA's president in the first place. The Qatari billionaire and friend of the royal family had risen to become nearly as powerful inside FIFA as Blatter himself.
Bin Hammam helped Blatter get elected in 1998 and in 2002. And Bin Hammam was on a promise that Blatter would step down and that he would replace him. Blatter went back on that promise, twice in fact.
In 2011, bin Hammam announced he would run against Blatter for FIFA president. But according to Blake and Calvert, just days before the election, bin Hammam was called to FIFA headquarters in Zurich. When he walked into the president's office, he was surprised to find not only Blatter waiting for him, but also a member of Qatar's royal family.
Blatter did a deal with Qatar. The deal was that if Mohammed stood aside and didn't stand against Blatter for the presidency, then Blatter would do his utmost to make sure that the Qatar 2022 bid was untouched.
That night, bin Hammam withdrew his candidacy. FIFA denies that any deal was struck with the Qatari royal family or that any meeting took place on the eve of the 2011 election, which Blatter would win unopposed.
There is not one single doubt that the World Cup 2022 will be organized in Qatar. Decision taken by the Executive Committee on the 2nd of December 2010 and not reversible.
FIFA denies there was any deal between Blatter and the Qatari royal family.
Through the histories, the dictators, when they think that this or that person is a prominent one, to replace him, first thing they do, they execute him.
Blatter has cut off people who've helped him.
Yes.
That's what he does.
Yes. Yes. That's no problem for him. You know. Mr. Bin Hammam was cut off, for example. Yeah.
Loyalty doesn't mean much.
No. Loyalty is rather a one-way street for him.
Blatter promised the 2011 election would be his last.
Is he a man who keeps his word?
No.
And so, before the World Cup last summer,
My mission is not finished. Congress, my mission is not finished. I am ready to accompany you in the future for the game for the world. But it's your decision, Congress, if you want to go with me. For the game, for the world, thank you so much.
This time, though, Blatter is not running unopposed. And the voices calling for change are louder than ever. Since ascending to the presidency of FIFA in 1998, Sepp Blatter has worked tirelessly to consolidate power and to stifle potential rivals for the position. But amid growing and recent harsh criticism of his leadership, he issued a challenge. He said to his critics, if you don't like the way I'm doing things, then have the courage to run against me. And they have. In fact, 3 men are now running against Blatter. They all came here to Vienna to state their cases.
There seems to be a lot of secrets going on. We don't know how the money is spent, what money is spent, who gets what.
As much as football is loved around the world, and it is the most popular sport, I think the reputation of the organization is the opposite. And I think that the only way to change that, to be honest, is a change of leadership, with all respect to everyone.
I would like to see much more democracy in terms of decisions in the organization. I think it's not healthy for any kind of organization, company, being depending of just one person.
Van Praag, Hussein, any chance of winning?
No, no. I don't know what these people are thinking. They're badly advised. No chance of winning.
The manner in which Sepp Blatter leads doesn't encourage competition.
An expert on ethics and transparency, Michael Hirschman was appointed in 2011 to FIFA's newly formed Independent Governance Committee.
And it was only until the voices got loud enough and the sponsors started to question what is going on in FIFA that they decided it's time for us to undertake a reform.
Under pressure, FIFA said it would investigate the 2018 and 2022 World Cup bids, appointing Michael Garcia, an American attorney, to lead the inquiry. But even Garcia, a former top federal prosecutor, found FIFA impenetrable.
I thought he was terribly frustrated. He did not have grand jury. He did not have subpoena power. He did not have the power to grant immunity. And so he got limited cooperation.
FIFA has thus far declined to make Garcia's report public, instead offering a summary, which Garcia said so distorted his findings that he resigned in protest.
There is another ongoing external investigation that might make an impact.
The FBI has been investigating FIFA with the cooperation of a former senior American official in the organization. Sources tell E60 that with that in mind, Sepp Blatter has decided it would be unwise to set foot on American soil. What kind of protection do you get from the FBI?
I can't state that.
Phaedra Al-Majid is the media consultant who claims she saw the Qatari bid committee offer bribes in exchange for votes. She says that shortly after her allegations became public, 3 FBI agents appeared on her doorstep. They were there, Al-Majid says, because of threats to her and her children. How have you been threatened? Through phone calls, emails?
Phone calls, emails, hacking especially, cyber attacks.
Where do you think it's coming from?
I really don't want to point fingers, but I think I'm the biggest threat to Qatar, so I would guess it's them. However, there could be a lot of parties involved at this point, including FIFA. Who knows?
Why are the Qataris threatened by you?
Well, I've witnessed things, and I've publicly spoken about those things. If it's proven, if proof is found, they could risk losing the World Cup, according to FIFA rules.
But Blatter says no one is taking away Qatar's World Cup as long as he's in charge. That's unlikely to change on May 29th when the presidential election takes place. Blatter is so confident of victory that he has declined to debate the other candidates or even lay out a platform for a 5th term.
My manifesto is the work I have done in the last years in FIFA. I am now 40 years in FIFA, and I am 17 years the president of FIFA. This is my manifesto.
All along, we had hoped to pose our questions directly to Blatter. Finally, in Vienna, we thought we might get our chance.
Yes, I remember.
We were told he might talk to us after the meeting's adjourned. So we waited. And waited. He never showed up. The most powerful man in sports, after all, answers to no one.
Who do I think football belongs to? Well, ultimately, it belongs to all of us. It belongs to the fans.
Football belongs to the people. Football is for everyone.
Well, if we didn't watch it, it wouldn't be there.
Football basically belongs to everybody.
The game was invented in England, codified in England, but it now belongs to the world.
FIFA behaves as if it would belong to them, and football definitely doesn't belong to FIFA, and for sure not to their executives.